Right on. So, first off, Leah, why don't you just tell all my listeners a little bit about yourself? And I could do it, but I feel like I probably wouldn't do it justice because you have done so many things and you're doing so many things. So,
Mhm.
in a few sentences, give them an idea.
Sure. So I am a life and leadership coach who has an experience where I did not have a great life and I was being led by other people and
Mm,
not leading the life that I was called to. So very, very quickly, I was born and raised in a great Christian home, great family, also six kids, really incredibly blessed to have that type of upbringing, I personally believe. And so, but I kind of fell off um, went off the track, so to speak, led my own life. I thought I was leading my own life. I think that's the
mm,
key. I thought I was choosing all of these things, but they were really being influenced and chosen for me. And I was allowing it. I was allowing myself to be led by other people, what it means to be a woman, what it means, what your beauty is really should be used for or whatnot. And that led me personally to make choices down this way of really thinking that the only thing that I could contribute to this world was like what I looked like. And so that led me down into like the fashion and modeling industries. I ended up, diving into that. I auditioned for America's Next Top Model, which is a reality TV show, and I got on that show. I was on cycle 3. That kind of like was the start of me really believing the lie that I was really leading my life. Like I was like, oh yeah, like this is definitely what I want. And everything Tyra says, yes, yes, yes. And not questioning like, do I really want this? Does Tyra really care about me? No,
mm.
no, and no. But I believed all these things. And it's not just her, it's just this whole industry I was wrapped up in. And that has a whole backstory. Like there was a lot of little things that kind of led me to the place of accepting whatever culture gave me. Um, and so all of that happening, happening in New York and modeling in New York and being on this show after I was eliminated and got off, I stayed in New York and I continued modeling. And really everything completely broke down in the middle of this fashion photo shoot for this international magazine. It was there in the middle of the shoot where, I mean, honest to God, it was just a moment where I just knew God was calling me to something greater and higher, and that this was not it. Like
Wow.
just
Yeah.
basically selling off my beauty for other people to abuse it or use it or distort it is not my greatest calling in life. Is not what I'm called to do. And I realized that I wasn't leading my life. Like I was letting other people choose my dreams for me, letting other people choose my path for me. And I was like, I guess you guys know what's best, right? I'm sure you wouldn't lie to me. I'm sure the government wouldn't lie to me. I'm sure the culture wouldn't lie to me. And I just really kind of followed along because it was shiny and because I had a
Mm,
lot of promises and it promised all these great things, money and fame and happiness. But I got all that stuff. I got a little bit of that fame. I got a little bit of that money, and happiness never came.
mm.
And so I just thought, well, I need to work harder and harder. But it was in this moment of this photo shoot where I was like, this this can't be it. I was looking around me, looking at everything that was going on. It was filled with dozens of people who were all there to orchestrate this photo shoot that I was supposed to, be a part of. And, it was just a ballsy move. I just got up in the middle of the shoot and I just said, I got to go. And they're like, what? And I'm like, no, 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 I'm leaving. And my paycheck had a comment in it. I was doing well for where I was in the modeling world at that time. And this job was a big deal for me on a lot of fronts. It was definitely moving myself up in my career, making more money, being more seen because it was an international magazine. But in that moment, I was like, no, I got to go. So the photographer, I remember, started to ease me and like, it's all right. A lot of girls feel this way. You're going to get used to it. You're going to get used to the lifestyle. Don't worry. Just kind of like treating me like a baby. Like you're okay. You're going to be fine. Do what we say, take off more clothes, do what we say. It'll be fine. And I was like, no, no, I don't want to do this. This isn't for me. And when they decided that I had already made my decision, when they realized like, okay, she's not changing her mind, the tone changed, Dave. Oh my gosh, the tone changed. That room, instead of just like coaxing me to stay, it was like, who the F do you think that you are? You,
Right.
you really think you're that great? You think that because you were on some TV show that you've done something? You're not even that thin. You need to lose weight. And they started tearing me apart physically. Um, At this point, I'm like throwing off their clothes, putting on mine, grabbing my bag. I'm doing everything I can to like get out of this freaking hellhole. I'm like, what, what have I got myself into? Everything was like the mask were off and everybody was showing themselves of who they really are at that point. And the things they said to me were so incredibly uh demonic. I think honestly it was so disgusting what they were saying to another person. And I just kept like getting my stuff and making my way to the door. It was this very big warehouse in New York City where all this was taking place. I was like trying to like walk across this whole warehouse just to get to the stupid exit. As I'm going to the exit, the photographer, I remember telling me, he says, if you leave, you're going to be a nobody. I'll make sure of it. You'll be a nobody. I remember, you know, I remember just looking back at him and, you know, I wasn't trying to be sassy. I was actually just desperate. And I just said, do you promise? Do you promise I'll be a nobody to you? Because I think that's probably the route that I need to take in my life now. Because I've made all of you everything to me and it's gotten me nowhere. It's gotten me into massive depression, massive debt, suicidal, doing things on the weekends that are just absolutely deplorable, hating my life, wanting to end it every other day, honest to God. And this is not okay. I mean, just because my picture's in Times Square, just because I'm modeling and you know, and I'm on this shoot and doing like for what? For what? And so I was just like, yeah, actually, I would love to be a nobody to you. I think that sounds like a really great life. So I walked out. I walked out. Long story short, I did a lot of rehab in my life on a lot of different areas. I had to rehab my mindset, rehab my life, rehab a lot of different areas to kind of get myself back to Leah, who are you? What do you want? What do you want to do? And what do you want to contribute to this world? And and then that was a you know a long process to kind of get to that place to comfortably say this is who I am and this is what I do. And so now gosh, that was back in 2005 when that happened. So it was quite a while ago. And since then, and since the time to kind of get myself back in order, I've slowly started to, you know, share this story in fuller detail, but also start helping other people lead lives that they choose and not the ones that are just being thrown down their throat by culture and by the world. And so for you to really be an active player in your life. And that's the stuff that I do now in my coaching program and then the work that I do.
Wow. So I was just listening to that, trying to take it all in and noticing so many different parallels between my own life. And I think that a lot of these things are sort of general themes that we go through as young people. And I went through it as well. It's funny, I nowhere near the level that you got, but I modeled in college just to pay, you know, pay some bills or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. It was this oddly superficial, fake, weird world that just rubbed me the wrong way. And I was just curious with you, what do you attribute that uneasy feeling that you had to? Because I think a lot of girls and guys never really have that feeling in the industry. And this is, you know, I've done a few like random little acting projects and stuff. And when I'm around those, I don't know the best way to say this without sounding bad, but those types of people, it's
Yeah.
just, it all feels so fake and just so, I'm like, so you go through your life this way? How is this fulfilling to you? Would you attribute that to your faith growing up? You mentioned your family was Christian,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Was that where it came from, or can you shed any light on that, especially for like young people listening who might get to a point where they find themselves wrapped up in this kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it might be easier for Christians to be able to be like, yeah, that's God calling me into starting to like think
Mm,
about like, should I be doing this? What are the consequences of this? Is this good for me? Is this right for me? Like, is
right.
this leading me on the path that he's calling me on? Um, However, even without faith, I think that feeling is always there. However, sometimes we choose to ignore it. You know, that's the beauty of free will. Like you can choose to ignore that uneasy feeling of like, I think I'm being used right now, or
Right.
this isn't really what I want to do, but I have to do it because I really want this. And we choose what we pay attention to. And we choose what we pay attention to within our own heart, within our own, you know, your heart, your soul, whatever you want to call that. Some people like to say, well, the universe told me this. I mean, whatever word you want to use, but
Sure.
um, there's something within us that speaks to us at a very intimate level that's not coming from the outside. And all of us have that.
Hmm.
Sometimes we have gone through life so long, quieting that voice that it becomes just numb and we really don't listen to it anymore. And so what we end up listening to when we don't listen to that is really our fears, our fear of being forgotten, our fear of like, not being loved enough, not being validated enough. So we do other things to fill that fear. So we like kind of quiet the fear instead of listening to the voice that's really of courage, of boldness within us. It's saying, you don't have to freaking do this shit anymore. You can
Hmm.
choose something different. And yeah, there'll be consequences. Yeah, you're going to have to walk away. Yeah, people are going to talk about you. But I'm going to tell you something. They're always going to talk about you. Somebody will always have something terrible to say about you, regardless if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. So at that point, you have to choose what path you want to take.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just think that's such a valuable lesson to make sure we emphasize, because I think we all have those moments in our life.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, in my own life, more recently, I used to own a chain of bars, and it it was one of these scenarios where you said you felt empty and you asked yourself, for what am I doing this? And it was at a stage in my life where I was just chasing money, because I come from a very poor, whatever, underprivileged background, whatever label people slap on it. And so I think for that reason, I've always just wanted to, quote, make something of myself and make enough money to be considered wealthy or whatever. And so I was obsessed with that. And I built this business in the bar industry. How I ended up in that industry is a long story, but I was there and I owned a bunch of locations in multiple states, and I was empty because it didn't sit well with me morally that I was getting people drunk for a living. I had this epiphany all of a sudden. It was really odd. I just really didn't feel great about it, because I've always been so into health and fitness, and I'm not much of a drinker. And I'm like, what am I doing, man? I'm getting calls about fights that broke out at one of my locations, and I'm like, I created that environment for that. And so it was just this really odd thing where I had to be honest with myself and say, this is not the business I want to be in long term. And ultimately we ended up selling all of our locations, and thank God, before COVID struck. But it was one of those moments where I had to be honest with myself and say, no, man, this isn't you. And it's okay to let go. Who are you trying to impress? Nobody,
Mm-hmm.
right? You
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be anyway. And it was like an elephant got off my chest. So it's so important to listen to that. And like you said, I think we all have it. We
Mm-hmm.
we ascribe different names and sources to it and stuff. And no matter what, it's there for all of us. So I was especially interested in talking to you, well, for a number of reasons, but definitely because you are so outspoken about your faith.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I'm 35 years old. I just started attending church for the first time in my life these past few months. I've told this on the show before, but I went to my wife and I was like, I it's kind of like I've checked all the boxes and I still feel empty. Can we give this church thing a try? And she was like, oh my God, we've been together 16 years. And she was like, I never thought in a million years. I mean, she started to like cry. She's like, I've always wanted to go to church with you. I didn't think it would ever be your thing. And I can't believe you're the one coming to me. She was raised Catholic. And so we started going to church at 35 years old. I'm this big bearded tattooed guy, and I'm terrified walking into this building. Like, what am I doing? What is
Yeah.
this? And it's been an incredible journey since. So
Mm-hmm.
I've read, obviously a little bit about your story and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you alluded to earlier. You did some things on weekends you're not so proud of during that period of your
Yep.
life, et cetera. Can you talk a little bit about that journey back to your faith for those
Yeah.
who might be listening and sort of going through something similar?
Yeah. So, gosh, yeah, yeah, it's a journey. It's one that I'm still on. I think that's
Yeah.
probably, let's start there. I loathe emphatically um stories where you're like, listen to how bad I was and then how good I am, and I've got it all figured out right now. Just follow me and I'm going to take you there. Like,
Yeah.
no, like follow Jesus. Don't follow me. I'm following him. Like, I'll like come with me. I'll hook arms with you,
Yeah.
but I'm also going to tell you that I'm going to stumble. And I'd
Exactly.
like for your help to help me up too when I fall. So, for the record, I'm still on that journey. I'm not where I was anymore. I'm in a different spot in my journey than obviously the beginning, but I'm still on it. So, let's just get that out right there. Um, but yeah, so I was born and raised in the church, and just really absolutely believing in Jesus Christ. Like, it was not an unusual conversation to talk about God the Father, Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, all of that great stuff. So my parents are very open about the faith and practiced it beautifully, and they still do. I'm so incredibly grateful for my parents who are bold enough to have faith and share it, because that's like one of the greatest freedoms we have. And to be able to share it is one that makes most people uncomfortable, right?
Hmm.
We're willing to share hate. We're willing to share, divisiveness, but we're not willing to share the love of Christ. Um, Side note to problems like maybe that we're currently in our culture, but my
Mm.
parents were always wanting to be able to share it, and the first people they shared it with was us kids, and so it was beautiful and it was good. However, everybody makes choices, and they do things in moments because they're weak, and we're all weak, we're all broken, okay. um and so for me in particular, I remember one, like, there were some moments where things definitely changed for me in my faith. And one of them is when I was 15. So I was 15, I was in high school. I had just changed high schools, new group of friends, all that great stuff, blah, blah, blah. So at 15, I had this boyfriend, and I thought everything was great. And everyone's like, oh yeah, you should definitely have sex with your boyfriend. And I was like, I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that. Like, I think that I think I've been told other things. Like, I think that I've been told, like, maybe you should, like, wait. And they're like, why would you wait? And I'm like, um, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I know the answer to that. And instead of actually finding the answer or asking, about the answer or finding out about it, I just, I got scared, and I allowed other 15-year-olds to be my, life coach. I mean, high school is so messed up because you have this time in life where nobody knows what the hell they're doing, but then they talk to other people who don't know what the hell they're doing, being like, what should I do? And then they give them advice, and you're like, do you realize that you're asking somebody else who's just as clueless as you about what you should do
Yeah.
with your life?
Yeah.
But that's what I did.
It's
And
when I
so
see my single friends giving relationship advice. I'm like, dude,
yeah, you're
you've
like,
never
oh
had
really,
one.
tell me more.
Yeah,
Tell me more. Tell me more
exactly.
about marriage and kids, please, because
Exactly.
yes, I
Please.
I know
Oh,
that you have all the answers,
oh,
right?
you've got a dog? That's cute.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so
Yeah.
sweet.
It's the
I
same.
mean, I love dogs, got tons of them, but I also have kids, so
Tons of them
it's
too.
different. Yeah, yeah, different. Beautiful and different. So, anyways, bottom line, not to drag this out. I mean, I lost my virginity at 15. Right. I thought that's what I should be doing. I mean, it was any listen, I made a free will decision. Like, this guy didn't do anything terrible to me. He was a great guy. He's married and has his own kids and family now. But I thought this is what I should do. Like, that you have to do because it's time, because you need to. And there was I didn't understand why maybe I shouldn't, or like maybe what boundaries or what you should have around that time. So I'm 15. I'm just a baby, and I lose my virginity to this guy. I have sex with him, and he's my boyfriend. And I remember, though, immediately, um, I left the bedroom, I went into the bathroom, and then I locked the door, and then I turned on the faucet so that he wouldn't hear me cry.
Mm.
And I realized, wow, if this is supposed to be so great, if this is supposed to be so freeing and what you should be doing, you're literally hiding from him, and you're turning on the water so he can't hear you cry. Why are you crying, Leah? Are you crying just because you you disobeyed some arbitrary rule? Or is there something deeper and more connected to who we are and intimacy between people and the reason for it, and best, environments and atmospheres where those things can happen and then kind of stay with you? Like, I didn't know this. So I'm 15. I'm in this bathroom. I'm crying. Like, what just happened? What did I do? And I knew I shouldn't have just done that. Not because I like disobeyed something, but I was like, I don't know. There's just something I just know deep in me. I'm like, no, that shouldn't have happened then at that time. And so what happened in that bathroom is really what led my faith journey into a different direction. And this is why I'm sharing this story, because it's not exactly fun or doesn't put me in a great light. But I began in that moment in that bathroom. I had a choice, maybe I wasn't completely aware, but really what was going on is I had a choice where I could lean into the knowledge that God is mercy, God is love, God forgives you. Um, we can try again. His love saves, his mercy saves, or I could listen to another voice. And this is the voice that I ended up listening to, which is the voice of shame. And it just said, I cannot believe you did that. Your parents are the ones who sit in the front row at church, and you totally screwed up. You'll never get it back. You'll never be a virgin again. So that's gone. It's never coming back. And everybody's going to talk about you, and they're going to say and tell everybody what you did. Everybody will know. More than likely, the really good guys, the good Christian guys, won't want to touch you or date you or look in your direction. You'll probably never get married to a really good guy or have that family that you dreamed of, because look what you've done. And you did it so young. You really screwed up your life at a time when other kids are just out there playing basketball. And look what you're doing. That was shame. I mean, that was the voice of shame. And I listened to every single freaking word. And I walked out of that bathroom, not accepting mercy, not forgiving myself and asking God to forgive me. I walked out condemning myself. And that put me on a faith journey away from God and his love and mercy, and really targeted more towards anything that said that my life was okay the way that it was, which, as we know, our culture is like, anything you do is fine. Sleep with whomever, how many times, whatever, doesn't matter. We'll give you medicine and shots and pills if things mess up. Don't worry about it. Right.
Yeah.
And even if we know that's crazy, these are the messages that are going on constantly in our culture. So even back then, it was the same thing. So I followed that, which led me further and further away from the God of love, the God of mercy. And I just didn't think I belonged anymore in church. Frankly, I was like, look, I get it. Church is for all you guys who, like, man, you are good. You're hardcore. You pick up that Bible and, man, you read that thing and you believe that. And, it's not that I don't believe, I just don't know if there's a space anymore there for me. So that, that one choice, I falsely believed in the lies of shame. And that kind of honestly led me down so many other paths, because I just thought, like, it's not for me anymore. I don't belong there anymore. So I'm sorry. I wish I was, but I'm not. And I'll have to just find a new group, because that's another thing. We all desire community.
Yes.
Everybody desires community. You see this in every facet of every part of life. You see this in business. You have all these masterminds. It's community. Okay. You see this obviously in Christianity, discipleship, which is also coaching, like community. Mm-hmm. You see this in families themselves. You're a little community. You see this in church communities, obviously, because we know that we're not meant to walk alone, no matter what we're doing. Even addicts, they need their addict community. They need people who are doing the same thing to kind of make them feel better about it. And I say that lovingly. I have people in my family who are addicts, who are struggling deeply, but we all seek out community. The type of community that you have reflects everything about the direction of where you're going. So I sought out community that was okay with the lifestyle that path that I was on. And unfortunately, it led me on to doing many other things that were absolutely condemned, obviously, in the Bible, but also condemned within my own heart. I know I shouldn't be doing these things. And I did them because I surrounded myself around people who had the same type of shame as I did.
Do you think that you did that because you truly thought that by doing this one thing you were ruined? Or do you think you let that be an excuse for taking the path of least resistance at that time in your life?
At that time at 15, I really thought I was ruined.
You did. That is, wow. Yeah. That is.
I really thought I was ruined. Later on, I chose the path of least resistance for sure. I remember absolutely thinking, you can't go back. It's too hard. And you're going to have to deal with your past self and have to admit that you're wrong. For sure, that was resistance later on. But in the beginning at 15, no, I thought I was done.
Wow. That's such a shame that you felt that shame at that age. And
yeah,
my hope is that anyone listening, or if you're a parent listening, I have a daughter and I know you have quite a few kiddos. It's like, gosh, I want to make sure that I do whatever I can in my power. I know it's nature versus nurture, but I hope that there's enough nurture there for her to know that one thing doesn't ruin you like that. That's, I'm so sorry you went through that. What gosh. So talking about kids, this is another thing I definitely wanted to talk about with you. You are a mother of six,
Yeah,
correct?
I
Six
am.
children.
Hmm.
What I feel like such a rookie. We have one, hopefully another one soon. But what
Yeah.
is is that because you came from five kids, or did you always know you wanted a big family, or did you just kind of start and be like, hey, this kids thing is cool, let's keep doing it?
Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Ricky and I got married. So Ricky and I are really we're really intense people.
Mm.
I married a Green Beret. So I married a guy who just does things a little different, you know. I mean, those special forces are
They are different cats,
they
absolutely.
are. They're a different cat. Like there's
My favorite
yes, let's
people.
just leave it there. Like they're just I can now personally spot them in a group and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you are definitely SF." Like I know who you are.
Yeah.
By what the clothes that you wear and how you're talking. So, but we're just intense. And I say that because Ricky and I when we got married a little bit later in life. So we got married. I was 33, he was 34. And we'd already lived a ton of life and traveled a ton and done all these things. And not that we were like, okay, we'll hang up our hats and not do anything fun. And now let's just go get married and have kids. But we happened to have individually these lives that were really intense and amazing and great and blessed and so wonderful. And so when we got married, we're like, look, I really want a family. And he's like, I really want a family. I'm like, then let's get to it because the clock is ticking. And I come from a family of six. I'm the oldest of six in my family. So I'm comfortable with a lot of kids. It doesn't scare me or worry me. And my mom was always somebody who showed me that anything's possible. She was really good at being like, you're capable.
Mm,
You're capable. I don't care what it is that you're wanting to do. I don't care what it is you attach to the end of that sentence. It's you are capable. You are capable of this. You are whatever it is, you're capable and you can learn how to do it. You can find someone to teach you how to do it. You can figure it out on your own. You're capable. And so even when it comes to like motherhood, I think so many women don't feel capable. They're like, "Oh, I can't. I can't." I'm like, "You just told yourself you can't." Now, that's I'm not here to convince you to choose something that you don't want. But I
right.
am here, in my opinion, to convince you that you're capable. You're capable. Now, whether you choose it or not, that's up to you and your partner, whatever you want to do. But so for me and Ricky, it was just like, well, we're capable and we really want to have a big family. We wanted kids and we didn't know what that was going to look like. We always like to think that like, oh, I'm going to get married. I'm going to have this many kids. What if you get married and you have infertility?
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, what if you try and try and try and try and try? And so you just don't know. So we just kind of went for it, like, let's just do it. Let's just have a big family. Let's go. Let's go. Let's just go hard about the whole thing. So we were intense, and we're like, let's do it. And we were always just really open to life and really open to babies. And um, there's a lot of things I regret in my life, but I don't regret a single child of mine. Even the child that I just recently lost. We just had a miscarriage. We just lost our seventh baby earlier this year, and I don't regret it. Not a moment. Not a moment of that pain. Not the moment of the pain that it still stings right now as I talk about it. No, there's a lot of things I do regret and that I've done in my life. Uh, but people, humans, babies, no, there's no
Yeah.
regret there. So yeah, so we had six kids in 7.5 years.
Wow.
So my oldest is 9 right now. My youngest is 1. And then we just had our miscarriage, our seventh baby, our little girl that didn't make it. And yeah, it's been something where we just were so incredibly blessed and happy to have every single one. And people like to say, were any of them like, mistakes? And I'm like, I just don't, I choose not to use that word. I don't like that word when I'm talking about my kids um, at all. Like, I know what the possibility of what could happen after sex. I'm fully aware that there's a
Exactly.
consequence
Yeah.
sometimes after sex. And so I'm not surprised, like, oh wow, ha, how
Oh
did
my
this happen?
gosh. Who would have thought?
Um, yeah, like so no, I mean, but we were open for it and we loved it. And it works really well for us and our family. And Ricky and I
That's
are as intense as we are. We just go for it. And we just left the city. And about a year ago, we decided let's get out of here and let's raise our kids on a farm and
that's
land
beautiful.
and bring them back to nature and let them really be the kids that we wanted them to be. And to give them time to kind of explore themselves. So yeah, we raise our 6 kids on an 80-acre farm in southern Missouri, and we're homesteading and starting an agro-tourism business with them. And they are little entrepreneurs. And I don't know, it's wild. It's not for everybody, but I love it. And it's for me.
That is beautiful. And so, I mean, you guys, wow. So it's really been a lot really fast.
Yeah.
You know, you start in your early 30s and make 6 kids, and you leave the city to start an 80-acre farm within the past year.
Yep.
Was that do you think that's a plan that resulted from the madness that sort of transpired in the world in the past few years? Or is that something that you sort of always saw yourself doing?
Yeah, it was definitely both. So
Yeah.
the madness of this world was the catalyst to be like,
Mm,
okay, now, like go now, pull the trigger now, for
yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, and but I was actually born and raised on a farm. I was born and raised in Oklahoma on a farm. So I am comfortable in that space. Now, here's the caveat that I have learned very quickly. I was raised on a farm. I did not own the farm. I didn't have like the personal financial responsibility to get stuff done. Now I'm the owner of the farm, and it's very different than being raised on a farm. My kids have got it made. But right now, oh wow, yeah, we are working the farm every single day. It is a massive responsibility, but I love it. I mean, it's great. It's good work. There's no complaining here. I absolutely love the hard work. I love what it's teaching us. We are constantly failing every single day at literally everything that we do, but we learn something new, and I'm learning really, really fast. So yeah, I mean, we're going for it, and the world definitely, pushed us out of the nest, being like, go fly now.
You said you left the city. Were you in St. Louis?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were in St.
Gotcha.
Louis, and we were just watching everything around us. And we're like, what is happening?
Hmm.
And Ricky, being special forces, has a little keen eye and his ear to the ground, and he has other ears that he, in his community, to the ground. And we were just like,
Time to
no, we're
go.
gonna go.
Yeah.
We're gonna get out of this
Time to
mess.
bug out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I love St. Louis as far as cities go,
Mm-hmm.
just to visit at least. I visit quite a bit because First Form is out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. So I'm in South Carolina. I'm from the South, Southern raised my whole life. I was in California for 2 regretful years. But no, it was a beautiful state, politics and
Yeah.
people, different thing, right?
Mm-mm.
Uh, and I find that Missouri people, Midwesterners, Oklahomans, I have a lot of friends just from that part of the country that I vibe with really well. It's a very similar feel, the hospitality, just the salt of the earth type folks
Mm-hmm.
that I'm used to here in the South. And so I'm not opposed to making a move out that way at some point. And we really want to get a bunch of land too,
Yeah.
and basically do what you guys have done. And I've talked to a lot of married couples who are starting to have that sentiment. That's why I wanted to put emphasis on that you guys really just went for it and did it quickly, and you're learning as you go.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really cool. What are you guys farming? Have you started like particular crops or
Yeah.
livestock or all of it or?
Yeah. So gosh, we have done Ricky has done so much. This is mostly Ricky. Okay. I am his support team. I'm like, what do you want me to do today? Like, what do I need to
Right.
do? So he teaches me as we go along. And then he's a firefighter as well. So when he's on shift, I have to do his job for him. When he comes back home, I'm like, praise God, you're home. Cause I do not want to be, I don't want your job. Like, no way. But so what we've been doing is, so one thing, we started an agro-tourism business with a pumpkin patch. So
Cool.
I never thought I would be a pumpkin farmer. Like, you're going to grow pumpkins. Like, I just thought like something else, but pumpkins. But that was one thing we wanted to do. We did want, and this has been a desire of Ricky's for a long time, to create a place for families to come to connect back to like nature in the world, to get away from the screens, get away from like just like their tiny little homes in these,
Hmm.
subdivisions so tight, and to get into open space with other people and really engage the community. So we have this big 80-acre farm, and about 10 or 12 acres of it we are using for like the pumpkin patch. And so we grew over 3 acres worth of pumpkins. It should have yielded about 60,000 pumpkins, but because of the drought, we only got probably maybe half of that or so, 30,000 pumpkins or so. So, but we have this big pumpkin. We have this big pumpkin, business where people come and they get to pick a pumpkin, or they go down a big slide, all like the little fall things that you
Yeah,
would
of
do in a
course.
place. There's a concessions and an axe throw and a spear throw, all those fun things. So that's a part of the farm now as well. So and let me see, we plant our own pumpkins, like literally one seed with our hands in the ground. And we did this row after row after row. Yes, there are better ways to do that, but they're more expensive and we didn't have that available to us. So we're just like, okay, we're going to plant the pumpkins, plant the pumpkin, then like put the seed in the ground and like you really get connected to your faith when you start working with the ground and you're growing things. You're like, oh, wow. You realize now why Jesus talked about so many farming parables than
Hmm.
anything else. Like there's a reason, because when you are connected to the soil and you see what's going on, oh man, it makes so much sense. Like your whole life just becomes kind of revealed to you as you're gardening and as you're growing crops. So yeah, we do that. We also have livestock. So we have some Dexter cattle. We've got hogs, we've got meat birds, and then our chickens. So when we differentiate between those two things, the last two, chickens are the ones that we have that lay eggs. Those are our hens. And then we call the meat birds exactly for what they are. We call them meat birds so that the kids understand. And so we can differentiate like who you're feeding, who's feeding what, or who's doing what chore. Because with the meat birds, we're growing them for meat. And we butcher those. Me and Ricky do it ourselves. With the hogs, we don't. We haven't done it ourselves yet, although we do plan on doing it and learning how to. But this last time, for our first round of hogs, we did send them off to a butcher and had them take care of them. So yeah, we're raising our own cattle for beef. We're raising our hogs for obviously for pork, and it's so tasty and good. The bacon's amazing. And then of course we have our chicken. So we do all of this so that we can, feed ourselves. And we usually give some to our family members, but right now it's just like to kind of keep ourselves going. And we're getting ready to butcher our chickens in the next few weeks. So those are fun experiences. Going into the crazy shutdown of the world, I feel like everybody decided like, okay, the world's shutting down. I need to get a chicken. Like I feel like that was like the
Yeah,
the solution to everybody's issue surrounding all of this nonsense.
so
And
true.
that's how it started for us in the city. And so when we moved to the farm, we just really expanded and got a lot more. So that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. Like it's just a casual little
Yeah,
whole
that's what
bunch
we're
of
doing.
stuff. That's
Whole bunch
amazing.
of stuff. Ricky's also doing Korean natural farming. I don't know if anybody is like, if there's any homesteaders, if you're familiar with this, but I find it, I personally just find it kind of funny because he's actually half Korean. So I'm like, look, it's your homeland. It's the things that you do. And he's like, Leah, I'm like, I've never lived in Korea. Like, no. I'm like, well, I'm just saying it's Korean natural farming and you're Korean. Anyways, I find it funny. He just looks at me and kind of like slightly giggles. But Korean natural farming is a way that you create your own fertilizer. Like nobody wants you to know this because fertilizer is so expensive, but you can create
Mhm.
your own fertilizer with the stuff that you have right there in your backyard. And as like the leaves lay down, and then there's like this like layer of like mold and other stuff that are like building up underneath the leaves, and you grab that and you add it to it and add a few other things. But I don't know all the details, but if you're interested in doing your own stuff, Korean natural farming is a way to go. And right now we are making a ton of condensed fertilizer that we'll be selling later on to farmers so that they can get out of the system and make their own or buy from us, which would be much cheaper. Just things like that we're trying to just learn how to do to take care of our land in a more natural way. Um, and then, give back to the community within it.
Yeah, there really has been this push towards
Mm-hmm.
homesteading. There's an
Yeah.
entire homesteading community
Mm-hmm.
online, and people are really into it. And I was laughing at what you said about everyone went and got a chicken because I was thinking about the toilet paper thing, and I was just picturing people all going out and getting chickens instead. Like, what? There's a chicken shortage, but it's so true because
Yeah.
people have been really freaked out these past couple years. And
Mm-hmm.
another point you made that is so true, and I see it every day, and it's something that as someone who I spend a lot of time in the outdoors, I fish, I hunt, hike, like it's just what I grew up doing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we're so out of touch with nature. Like even kids that I see, I take my daughter fishing a lot. I take her hiking, and I have her outside as much as I can. And I caught a catfish the other day, and you would have thought that the little kids who were there playing on the beach is like they had seen a dinosaur. Like it was just,
Yeah.
and it's a catfish. It's like this very normal thing. Like I grew up fishing and exposed to nature and getting dirty all the time. And like I had this crowd of kids around me, just so mind blown to see a real fish. And it's like, we have gotten so disconnected from that. It's kind of sad.
It is sad. That should be sad. That's like that's a normal thing. We shouldn't just be reading about these things just in books. And granted, I'm fully aware that it's not always available depending on where everybody lives and what's going on.
Yeah.
But it used to be common, even if you didn't live on a farm, that you were aware of these, animals and the ecosystems in our world, especially the country that you live in. And so, yeah, but of course we know all the things that don't matter. Like we know every single type of drama in the celebrity world. And, we know, the amount of people following the Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, whatever nonsense drama that was. And then behind the scenes, all this other crap is going on in the government. Nobody's paying attention to their own lives or their own relationships or anything else going on. It was just like, what's the next thing? And we're demonizing people and then raising people up so we can demonize them even further when they fall. And it's a mess. Like basically read the room, pay attention to your own life, get your own stuff in order. How are your relationships going on with your family, with your partner, with your kids? What's going on there with how about with God too? Do you have a relationship with him? I mean, what's that look like? Like you have to make that decision on it. But oftentimes we don't ask ourselves those hard questions so that we can become more aware. And I think ultimately, at least this is what I love about what you're doing on your platform is just, to me, I see you consistently trying to just bring deeper awareness to topics and people. Like, have you thought about this? Maybe you should. Here's something more to think about, asking ourselves these questions, because we have to become more aware about our own selves and our own lives and our own choices and those consequences of those choices, if we really want to do anything about it.
Exactly. And for me, I'm just naturally curious. I want to talk about these issues and I want to talk to different people. And I don't shy away from it because I think that in general, like I was always the kid in class that would like raise my hand and just talk, just completely unaware of like, some kids don't want to talk in class or whatever, but I was just like, if I got the question, I'm sure one of you do too. So let's talk about it. Right. And that's why I started doing this ultimately after selling my company and everything else. It's just, we as a society, especially in America, have become so bifurcated left and right, and nobody's talking. People aren't talking anymore. And there is so much value in just having conversations with people, especially if you disagree on topics. I have tried so hard to get people on the show from the left. And I don't think there's any question where sort of my set of values lie. I've been pretty outspoken about individualism, hard work, all of that stuff. I align with the right on most things, but I'm open-minded and I like talking to people and finding out why they think what they think, because I truly believe, and I had Dan Holloway from Citizen Podcast on. You would really like his stuff if you haven't seen him. And I was telling him, I truly believe that both sides thinks they're doing the right thing. It's not like one side is purposefully trying to be evil. I think that there are perhaps some pernicious actors and then a bunch of useful idiots, but for the most part, both sides believe wholeheartedly that they're doing the right thing. And that is the unifier, that we all want to do the quote right thing, but we don't want to talk to one another about why our right thing is the right thing. And so that's why I like doing this and talking to folks who have really made something of themselves, made a big change, overcame, does something interesting in life, And so when I saw you, I was like, wow, 6 kids, former top model, on a homestead now, coaching people, bringing so much value to society. I just really wanted to talk to you about all of that. So as far as the coaching stuff goes, can you tell me a little more about how that business looks, what exactly you do and all of that?
Yeah. So for a long time, I was just speaking on stages, and obviously
Mm,
most of them were, just completely based on um Christian principles and everything, and Christian conference, which is great, and I love that. It's not that I don't, but it was
yeah.
mostly like just keynoting and just speaking. And I just realized as I was doing it more and more and more, the content of my talks, initially it was me, telling, sharing my witness story, sharing my testimonial, and coming back to Christ and all this great stuff. But I was starting to share that, but I was starting to get really practical, like in like, okay, look, this is something you can do to change
Mm,
your life. Like,
hmm.
here's a different way to think. Maybe here's a question you should ask yourself. Maybe you should journal with this. Maybe in the morning do this. Maybe in the evening. And I remember like um a few of these conferences would be like, they would try to redirect me, like, hey, could you just kind of do this, maybe expand upon this piece of the gospel, or could you talk about, and I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And then I would do that. But I kept having frustration of like, I really want to do this other type of stuff. And I realized that other type of stuff was actually called coaching. So what I was doing is I was utilizing my platform of being a keynote speaker to coach from a stage. And I just decided about 2 years ago to go all in on coaching. And I was like, no, um, I'm going to step away a little bit from the stage just for a time being and let other people kind of do their thing and fill the gap there. And I really want to go all in on this coaching area. I really want to be able to help people get to a place where they are leading their own life. Like, a lot of people don't see themselves as a leader. They don't see themselves as a leader. And I'm like, that's your number one problem, because who's leading you? It's your life, my friends. Who's leading
Exactly.
you? Right.
Yeah.
So my whole goal in coaching is to help you really coach yourself, is to coach you so that you become your own coach, your own leader in your life. And so how that kind of played out for me professionally was just, it's all been really a beautiful unfolding, and it's still unfolding. And you can't always connect the dots when you look back. And so I'm like, oh, I kind of see, like, I started out in this one area, started moving more into like this desire to coach, this desire to help. And then now I've just decided to go all in. So I actually created, one of my big things is that because I'm a Christian, and I love personal development so much. Like, I've taken all the courses from all the main people, like, Tony Robbins, all, like, just everybody. Like, I've done it all. It's been so good, and I loved everything. However, I always looked at it through the lens of the Christian faith. Okay, so there was definitely some things that just did not completely jive, or I feel comfortable with certain statements. I'm like, okay,
Sure.
okay, okay. People talk about, like, ask the universe for this, and I'm like, I'm just going to talk to God. I'm going to ask, the creator of the universe about that whole thing with the
Mm,
universe. So
hmm.
for me, that was just my perspective. And I would always make these, like, small tweaks and adjustments as I was going through different programs. And then it got to the point where I realized I'm looking for a very scripture based personal development program. Like, I want something that's like, just give me the scripture that goes along with this, and make sure that, like, I'm not twisting scripture to make it work for personal development. I want personal development to really find its space authentically within scripture of what Christ calls us to. So, long story short, that led me into actually just creating my own program. I was like, okay, here we go. And so I was inspired by 2 Corinthians 12:9, which is, in that piece of scripture, Jesus says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And so, one of the best things that I love
Mm,
about personal development is that you're not invited to come in with your shit together. You're invited to come in as a mess. You're invited to come in with, like, all the things that you got going on, every bit of dissatisfaction, every bit of maybe low self-esteem, every little bit of doubt, every little bit of, like, I just really want to be better. Like, whatever it is, bring it into this moment, like, bring all your imperfections, and then really, like, let the power of God, the power of Christ, work through you, because he does not give you a power to be weak. He does not give you a power to be a doormat. He gives you a power to work actively in your life for the kingdom. And so that's kind of like the basis of the program that I've created, which is called Power Made Perfect.
mm.
And it's a Christian based personal development program that I lead people through. It's a 90-day challenge. And I've just been doing that virtually online now. And we're starting up round 2 next year. And yeah, that's just the work that I'm doing. That's where my heart is. And I love it.
I can tell. I can tell. You can
Yeah.
see the passion. I love when I
Yeah.
talk to people who are that passionate about what they're doing. You also you wrote a book, correct? I believe.
Did.
Or what
Yeah.
tell me
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, it's called The Other Side of Beauty. So, yeah, Thomas Nelson published it, The Other Side of Beauty. And it's really for me, I was able to just unfold my story in a way that look what true beauty really is, and to take it from a very scripture-based perspective. Even what some philosophers have said about the, this term beauty, and how distorted it gets in the world, and
Mm,
especially for us women. Beauty is this, I really believe that we are ambassadors of beauty, and we are there to help protect it in a way that it should be. And the culture is the enemy that continues to distort beauty. It distorts how we view beauty, how we see beauty in ourselves, and that therefore, obviously directly affects men and everyone else. So, anyways, the book, The Other Side of Beauty, is just this unfolding of this conversation of my story, but also really what true beauty looks like. And I don't mean like the bull crap that you hear from people of like, just be nice. Like, beauty is active.
mm,
Beauty is something that you actively can do in your life to bring about more beauty in your world and in your family. And for them to actually see what beauty really is. I mean, there's beauty in suffering, there's beauty
yes.
in the
Yes.
cross, right? There's beauty in the resurrection. And do we live our lives with that type of beauty that really gives glory to God?
Yeah.
Because that's beautiful. That's what
Yeah.
beauty is. And so that book, The Other Side of Beauty,
Mm,
is really an unfolding of all of those concepts.
yeah. And there's beauty in discipline and self-control.
Yes. 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 Paul talks about this. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, it's that's something that I was actually having this conversation with my wife this morning because it's not lost on me how many young men listen to this show and follow my material, whatever platform. It's mostly young men, like 18 to 20 something,
Hmm.
because I do a lot of the fitness stuff and all of that. But
Yeah.
also, I want to stress to these guys, man, like the ultimate form of strength, the ultimate, if you want to be a man, if you want to really be a man, you need to master self control and discipline. And I was talking to my wife this morning about getting emotional when something offends you or losing your temper, and how the real exercise in maturity and in my case, being a man is not letting anyone ever have that power over me. I have power over my emotions. If someone can anger me or upset me, then they have power over me. And so I try to convey that to young men a lot. And the way you get there is through discipline, self control. I'm really big on find your person, start a freaking family, all these things that I just think
Hmm.
that are so pushed aside by modern society, and have in no small part contributed to why so many young people are in despair, right?
Yeah.
And I tell guys, and I can't take credit for this completely because I think I originally heard Ben Shapiro of all people talking about it. But if you're a young guy and you want to become a man, one of the best things you can do is take on responsibility and serve, help your community, be of value to your community. I think a lot of young people don't even have that internal dialogue of how they can be of value to others, how they can be of it's become so self-centered and narcissistic in this culture. And it's just so important to me that we relay that. And so when you said there's beauty in suffering and beauty in all these different areas, I'm like, man, there's so much beauty in a person who has mastered their emotions and self control and self discipline as well.
Yeah. I second every single thing you said. I mean, um, I know that that was one of the most attractive qualities I found in Ricky when we were
Mm,
dating. Um, I had dated some really amazing men before him. I'm very blessed. I had God was really good about kind of rehabbing my opinion of men after I kind of had like my whole like come to Jesus moment. And one of the things that had to be rehabilitated was my view of men, because I had seen them as a certain way because of really who I was and my actions of my own self. And And I needed to kind of, God was really good about bringing some great men that I dated, didn't work out, but I dated who were really disciplined. They were very good. They were God fearing. They were respectful. I mean, it was awesome. And it gave me, hope that, okay, this is going to be okay. But when I met Ricky, oh my gosh, one of the things that stood out above the fray, above everybody, is that was a man of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline. And this is the time where, I knew he was a Green Beret. Like I knew he was doing that stuff, but this is a time in between. He was in between deployments and everything else. And I saw that man still get up at the time that he said he was going to get up. He did the things he said he was going to do. He called when he said he was going to call. He did things for himself that were like for the betterment of himself. Like he worked on personal development for him. He read books because they were making him better. I saw these things and I was like, that's a disciplined man. That's someone who's going to show up, who is going to be there when times get really crappy. Let me tell you something. We've been married 10 years. Ricky continues to inspire me with his discipline of doing the shitty thing when no one else wants to do the shitty thing. And for me, yeah, that's one of the like main qualities of what a man should be. Like, do you show up when you say you're going to show up? Do you do the thing that nobody else wants to do? Do you do that? And, I'm just incredibly blessed. I mean, I found Ricky, and there's no way I was going to let go of him when I saw that. I was like, no way, man. Like, I'll do whatever I got to do to keep you here. So it's awesome.
Yeah. And it really is. And I'm so fortunate to have found my wife early. I mean, we've been together since we were 18. It was just serendipitous. It happened, and I got really lucky. And I'm so,
Yeah.
thank God for that. But, what would you say to young ladies today? Because I do sometimes hear from, I would, young ladies, but a lot of times it's women my age in their 30s that are just like, it's so hard to find good men. Where are all the good men? Our culture has just ruined it. Everybody wants to hook up and use the apps and do all this stuff. And I'm like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, and add to whatever you would add, but I'm like, you just got to keep living the life you want to live, going the places whether it's church or whatnot, like you will cross paths with someone of value if you do things of value, and surround yourself with those activities. Don't go to the bar looking for your ideal man who's disciplined and God-fearing and wants a family and is going to take care of you and can let you step fully into your feminine energy because he fills that masculine void. You're not going to find that dude sharking around the bar looking for a hookup, So I say just like live true to your values, and someone else doing the same will be there. I mean, that's sort of the best advice I can think of, but I was just curious what you would say to young people they're really distressed. They're like, gosh, I just want a good person. I don't want to hook up,
Yeah. So, I would ask yourself this question. What are you tolerating in your life right now that is attracting these people?
That's good.
So you're probably tolerating something in your life that you don't want to tolerate, that you don't like, but you're tolerating it and it's attracting a certain type of guy, right? Look, these are not fun questions, but these are the ones that I had to ask myself. I was tolerating a certain type of a guy. He wasn't horrible, but it was a certain type of a guy. And I'm like, what the heck? What's going on? Why is this happening? There was actually something in me that I needed to work on that was kind of the trigger for attracting these types of guys. And once I discovered that, I was like, oh, okay. So then after I did that, there was some work on myself I needed to do. There was some personal development work I needed to work on, and I did it. I did it. So that brings me to the next thing, which is you want this great guy. So all the ladies out there, if you're listening, reverse it for the men, but you want this great guy, and he's amazing. He does all these things, and he has this type of a lifestyle, and he's blah, 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 whatever this is. He is looking for a woman who is matching him.
Yes.
So if you like raise the bar for this guy, that means you have to raise the bar for yourself. Are you as disciplined as you need to be? Are you doing the things that you really want to do? Are you becoming the woman that you are called to be? And if you're not, that's okay. We still love you, but then try a little bit more tomorrow. Try a little bit more tomorrow about being that person that you really want to be, that's going to attract that great guy. Because the guy who's at the very top, the one that you really want, who has all those qualities that you just deem so important to you and have the same values as you, He is not like, well, I'll just take anybody. No, his eyes are set up and they're not set down. So you have to meet him there wherever it is. And it's the same thing for the guys. You want this amazing woman, then grow up and be the amazing man you need to be to attract her, because we know we will feel that energy. We will see what's going on. We will see the confidence. We'll see what you're putting out. And the women who are really confident are going to be attracted to the really confident men. And
Yes.
so it's the same thing. I would ask yourself those things. What are you tolerating? And then from there, what do you need to work on? And then raise the bar for yourself. Like maybe you always wanted to get on a better health kick. You're like, you know what? I need to take better care of myself. Now is the time to do that. Now is the time to do the discipline, to work on yourself, to do those things. Or maybe it's just, I need to work on myself within personal development. Like I need to kind of work through some of the thoughts that I say to myself, the things that I do, or my routines. Do that. And I think, like you said, Dave, too, put yourself in environments that typically your dream guy would be in.
Mm-hmm.
And so where is he going? Where is he going for coffee? What is he doing on the weekends? Is he going to seminars or conferences or personal development? Like I'm obviously into personal development a lot. So I would
No,
like,
but it's
if I was
true.
single right now,
Yeah.
I'd be like, I would sign myself up to every awesome personal development conference I could go to. And I'd be like, I'm going to do this for myself, but I'm also going to be in a room of other people who find this to be very important to me. So if church is very important to you, go to church, my friends. Okay. Get into
Mm-hmm.
communities, get into groups that like have those same values as you, because you're going to find people who have at least a foundational alignment with some of your values.
Exactly. Yeah. Man, I couldn't agree more. If you want someone with traditional values, and that's what we're talking about here, traditional masculine versus feminine, man, woman, if you want that, you got to go old school and actually do stuff in person. Stop trying to rely on these apps to
Yeah.
get, you're like, it's like pulling up to a fast food place asking for a steak. It's
Yeah.
just, you're not going to find that steak there. You got to go to a nice place to get a steak. You got to go where steaks are to get steak, right? So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
it's it's so true. And gosh, you touched on such an important thing there, and I see it all the time. People like, and I do a lot of recruiting coaching, and I talk to because I was in talent acquisition for a decade for like Fortune 500 companies, and I recruited all kinds of different positions. And so now I coach people and I speak to business owners about it. And it's the same thing. I hear it all the time. There's no good people. I can't find good people. People are entitled, blah, 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 blah. And I always, when I speak to these guys, I always flip that on its head. And I say, well, you guys talk about how entitled the workforce is and how there are no good people. Well, why are you so entitled to think you deserve the best people? Maybe that's why the good people aren't showing up. What have you done to be that business that deserves the best employees? Because I tell you what, there are people out there who own businesses that are getting the good people. Maybe it's you, and that's why you're not getting the best people. And it's the same thing with relationships.
Mm-hmm. It
You
is.
got to you got to look at yourself.
And we know this. I mean, we're both married, and even when you're married, it's not like you're like, okay, well, got that one done. So now I'm just going to forget about being the awesome self-disciplined person. I can let it all go. Like,
Yeah,
are you
right.
kidding? No, like you still are doing things. Like Ricky still inspires me. I still inspire him with my work ethic, with the ethic I have in my home, with my
Hmm.
kids, with homeschooling them, with taking care of them, with providing a meal every night. Like that's inspiring to my husband. We have these same, like you said, traditional values, to where when I'm fully me and in my feminine energy and space and doing my thing, it's inspiring to him. And the same thing goes for Ricky when he's disciplined and doing all the things that the man does. Like that's inspiring to me. And that's how it works so well. Like you don't just give up on yourself or each other after you've checked the box. Um,
Exactly.
it keeps
If
going.
anything, you should do it more, because now,
Mm,
so for me, I'm like, man, I owe it to her to be as good as she is and better than she is, and then she's gonna try to meet me there, and then we keep doing this thing, and it's like we're just constantly striving to be better for one another, but then also to set that example for the next generation, right, that we're raising. And gosh, I got to tell you, you were talking about kind of watching Ricky step into his roles and continue to strive. And I'm like, man, when I was watching my wife with our baby daughter, just watching her be a mom. I'm like, that is the sexiest thing. Like, it's just, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at you. You know,
Yes.
like it just gets better, people. Like this whole like, oh, you get married and it's boring, and no, forget that. That's all in your control.
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, like if that's what you say, if you really think like, oh, I'm gonna get married, I know I should do it, and then it's just gonna suck afterwards, or kids are gonna take away all my joy, or I won't be able to travel with kids. I'm like, you're creating that boundary for yourself. I have
Yes.
taken my kids literally all over the planet. International travel. Have done it all together. Ricky and I have taken all the kids, and people are like, I cannot believe you take all your kids everywhere. And I'm like, should I leave them at home alone? Like, well, I'm
Right.
sorry. Should I stop living my life? Or
Yeah.
should I show them life? Should I show them how you do things? And so there's I think bottom line to anybody who is single, who is looking for somebody, is that it gets better every single day.
Yeah,
It
it
gets, and it
does.
doesn't start getting better when you're married. It starts getting better when you choose it.
Mm-hmm.
When you choose it, do you choose to be a little bit better tomorrow? How do you want to do that now? What are you tolerating in your life that you shouldn't tolerate anymore? And then what are you going to do about it? But you start having that attitude and that mindset going into every single day, your life does get better every day. And it just makes everything better as it comes along.
Yeah. And it's the small little increments that you almost don't notice. But then one day you look back and you're like, how the hell did I get here? This is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And it's just the every single day, just a little bit. And it really is what works, works. This is simple stuff that's always worked. You know, we try to overcomplicate things, I think, because it gives us an excuse for not achieving them when
Yeah.
really the answer is simple, but simple is not easy. You know,
Hmm.
simple is not easy. A lot of times it's just not the easiest thing, but you know what the thing is you should be doing. So, Leah, I got to tell you, this was awesome. We blew through an hour so fast.
We
I,
did.
I, I need to have you again for sure. There's just so many other things I'd love to talk about, and I
Yeah.
appreciate how gracious you've been with your time. I know you got a lot going on. So to wrap this sucker up, I
Mm-hmm.
usually like to ask, especially new guests on the show, if I remember. I've missed a few lately, but what is one piece of advice, and we've already done a lot of this, but if there's anything else you want to share, one piece of advice you would give to young people today, because that's always what I go back to, is these are the people who are going to carry this thing when we're in the dirt, right? So, or you know, when we're in a better place. What's one piece of advice you would give them today, especially considering everything going on in the world, society, etc.? Any insights?
I would suggest creating more silence in your day.
I like that.
So there's so much noise, and there's always something going on, and even if there's like, there's always noise in your head too, but how much silence do you have in a day? In those moments of silence, of real intentional silence, and not like, oh, it's been quiet and I didn't realize it. Like, no, all silence right now. I'm going to be intentional with this period of time of silence. You'll start connecting with yourself. You'll start connecting with something deep within you, your desires, your needs, your wants. You're going to start thinking about the things that actually really matter in those moments of silence. Most people don't do this. And I have imagined that even people who are listening, there'll be a very good portion of you that won't even do this because it's hard. But I'm hoping, because you're listening to this podcast and the fact that Dave does really hard things all the time, that you're also more apt to that. So there'll be another group of you who are like, yeah, I'm going to take that freaking challenge. Let's do it, because silence is hard. It's embarrassing sometimes. It's deafening sometimes, because you start to see and hear the true self, your true self, your higher self begin to speak. And your higher self will begin to speak in that silence of what you could do with your life, the
Mm,
possibilities of your life. And that is very, I mean, I have goosebumps. It can be very scary to think about what you could be and who you could be. And then now the idea of like the actions to get there. So
yes.
all of that happens though in times of intentional silence. So that's what I would leave you with.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I know probably as a fan of self development, you're familiar with who Ed Milet is.
Yes, I love
Yeah,
Ed.
yeah. So Ed talks about, I believe it's Ed, and sorry if I'm wrong. I'm sure someone will correct me, but he talks about getting to the pearly gates and being shown essentially a video or a replay of what his life could have been had he maximized his potential, and then realizing that it was different from the life he lived. And that's powerful. And that speaks to exactly what you just said. It is so uncomfortable to gaze inward at ourselves, to sit in silence and say, what could I be doing? Who could I be? And it's uncomfortable because you're like, all right, I'm not that. And this is what I have to do to get there. But it's so powerful and so fulfilling when you can do that. I think that's beautiful advice. Leah, thank you so much. Where can everybody find you if they want coaching or to follow along or to get your book or any of the other amazing things you got going on?
Yeah, you can just follow me. I'm on social. It's at Leah.Darrow. And of course, my website, leahdarrow.com. You can reach out to me there. Either way, it's me. There's nobody else. I don't have any weird bots. I respond and I read everything. And yeah, I would love to connect with you. Or if there's just anything I can do to share, just to hear your story, I'd love to people just to share their experiences, especially those that align with what I've already been through. Feel free to send me a message. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Thank you for all you're doing. You're helping a lot of people and creating value in the world, and that's all we can hope for. So, Leah, thank you so much, and everybody listening. Until next time, keep your minds free.